All right. How long is it going to take to finally be free of addiction, of porn addiction, of sex addiction, of other behavioral addictions, of depression, of suicidal tendencies? How long is it actually going to take to finally be free of this? Is it possible? Is it going to be a fight for the rest of your life? These are questions that you've got in your mind. Is it possible for you? These are all questions. I thought we would just talk about that for a little bit. I want to give you a new possibility here. You see, when I went through this, it was easily 5 to 10 years of searching, training, looking for solutions actively, trying out everything, traveling all over the world, finding certifications, testing out different healing methods, speaking with counselors about things, trying out 12-step programs, facilitating 12-step programs, everything I could to try and find my way through this. Paid programs, not paid programs, you name it. And I was trying to go the cheap route. I was trying to do it myself. I was trying to pay as little as possible to honor the budget. And I looked back and I realized that as much as I told myself I was going the cheap route, I had spent well over $60,000 looking for a solution to this one issue in my life. I claimed I was looking for a solution for other things, but the reality was every time I went searching, I was searching for a solution to this, to fix this addiction in my life. And I had spent well over $60,000. Money we didn't have. And I didn't even realize I'd spent that much. It was way more costly for me to try and do it on my own. And it took me 5 to 10 years. Here's the thing. I talked with a client of mine today, and he just graduated, right? He was an amazing guy. He's a coach in his own right, helps other people with deep, deep issues of all kinds of different things, trains them. He's been through certifications and trainings and all kinds of stuff, has more experience in some areas than a lot of the people that I've met. And he came to me because he couldn't figure out how to handle this. This piece in his life was the thing that was so incongruent and everything. And I asked him at the end, I said, well, how long do you think it would have taken you to finally be free of this, to figure out all these pieces on your own? I was just curious. And he said, he was laughing. He's like, maybe 10 years. Because he knows what it takes to figure these things out. He's done a lot on his own. And I thought about it. I was like, yeah, that's about right. That's about my experience. It's not that you can't figure it out on your own. It's the question is, what's the cost of doing it? There's the money cost, which I didn't even realize I was incurring. Well over $60,000 over that time. And then there was the time cost. And that's stuff I can't get back. I can earn money back. But in the time that I was looking, I got married. I had 4 children. And I was still stuck in addiction. And I was depressed and suicidal and angry at times. Other times not. It's not like my whole life was that way. But a lot of it in the background all the time was this worry, this concern about not being good enough, not being worthy, being broken, being a failure, and all of this stuff because of this one thing that I was trying to handle in my life. Inside of my life, this one thing was just owning me for that entire period of time. And now as I look back on it, I think, what would it have taken if someone had come up to me and said, look, you know what? It'll cost you 10 grand and we'll handle this in a series of a couple of months. I'd have jumped at it. Seeing what I see now, I would have jumped at it because the money I could have earned back, but the amount of time, that I can't earn back. Now, we've got a great relationship now. Amazing things are happening. But the period and time I had with my kids, with my oldest when he was young, going through his infant years, I missed so much of that while I was out searching for a solution, while I was upset or angry or frustrated, while I was yelling, and while I was sometimes treating them very, very poorly just because I was hurting on the inside. And that's stuff that I can't undo. I can't go back and change that. So that was the cost of it. So what I want you to see here is the amount of time is just as important to consider as the amount of money it's going to take for you to get out of it, and what kind of investment that's going to take for you. Whether you're consciously doing it, like it's a decision, and maybe you've done that, maybe you've been to counselors, or maybe you've been to other programs, or maybe you've tried a bunch of things and you've consciously made that investment, or unconsciously you were investing in other things hoping it would fix this. And that was, my mind was kind of split between the two. There's a huge investment in the amount of time it takes to get free of addiction. There's the money involved, but then there's all of the memories and stuff. So now I have 2 clients I want to tell you about really quickly, and then we'll kind of button this up. One of them, he came to me. He had been to a counselor for 1.5 years straight. Now, this was not the first counselor he'd been to, but this one was specialized in addiction. Okay, someone who's had a lot of experience with this. This 1.5 years he spent paying him $100 to $150 a week going to counseling. looking for the root cause of the addiction, which means he'd spent around $8,000 to $10,000 looking for the root cause. And he told me when he came to me and he was like, look, we didn't get anywhere. Like, I went through a lot of emotional experiences, but it's like nothing really ever changed. So he had spent $8,000 or $10,000 and a year and a half of his life trying to accomplish step number one, which is just find the root issue. And he couldn't find it. And he had done that, not necessarily because the counselor was a bad person or anything. He was honestly doing his best to help him out. But he had spent that was the cost of him looking outside for different kinds of solutions. Who came to me, 20 minutes. We found out what the root cause was. That's step one. Now we could actually make a game plan and start to get some real changes in his life, which started to happen really quickly. Another one just signed up. He's a teenager. And he had been to 3 different therapists by now. He'd been dealing with porn addiction for like 5 or 6 years by now. And he couldn't find his way out of it. He didn't know what else to do. And so this therapist, this last one they went to, his job, he said, our goal is to find the root issue and handle it. They've been going to him for three months now. 3 months. That's 12-ish sessions at $100 to $150 a session. Right? So we're talking around $1,800, $1,200 to $1,800, where this family is investing time, an hour a week, and money to try and solve a solution, and it wasn't happening. They weren't seeing results. The kid was just in the same space he was before, struggling with his faith, struggling with depression and anxiety and other types of things coming up, all because he can't find what the root issue is, right? And that was money that they would gladly have invested to handle this in a hurry. And with him, it took us 25 minutes. We found out what the real issue was, and we've already got him going on a good game plan. So I want you to consider the economics of this. When it's coming to helping you finally drop something that is like a cancer in your life. You figure if it were cancer, you would drop everything to try and solve this thing. But because it's not visible and not like diagnosed by a doctor and all that, and there's not necessarily always physical pain with it, though sometimes there can be. Because that's the case, people don't think about it. It's an invisible killer. But this cancer in your life, the cost of keeping it going for that long is huge. Easily 5, 10, 20 times as much as the cost incurred along that space trying to solve it. But there's 2 costs. There's money and time when it comes to solving addiction. And those are questions you're going to have to answer for yourself. Do you want to spend the money, and do you want to spend the time to do it? Because if you're going to do it on your own, there's going to be a lot of roadblocks you're going to hit. And I'm not saying you can't do it, but there's a lot of things you're going to run into, and it's the time factor that is going to be the most important one. Unless you're like me and you realize later, holy cow, I have spent a lot of money on this, right? Which most people actually have, and they don't realize it. Okay, it's the time factor that's something that you're going to want to consider here. How much time do you really want to keep going with this? Because the rest, that time, think of what's going to happen in your life, in your family's life, and everything else that's going on in that period of time while you're still struggling with this, and feeling these things on the inside, still dealing with the unworthiness or the shame or the guilt or whatever else it is that's causing inside of you. Those are questions to consider. How long does it really take to get rid of it? I've had a guy in 3 days, the urge and the desire for pornography totally vanished from his life. 3 days. Other guys, it takes a lot longer. It depends on the person, but I'll tell you this much, 100% success rate with everybody who's come through the program and done all the work. Which means that I think at the outside I had one guy take a little over 3 months, so like 13, 14 weeks, to just get all the work done, to get himself situated and accomplished, and to find the real freedom and know he was totally good and had laid the foundation forever. So how long does it take? It doesn't have to take forever at all. It just depends on how you want to go through it. Do you want a guide to take you through it in the shortest amount of time and the shortest amount of money, probably? Though for some people, they may debate that. But do you want a guide to take it through you in the shortest amount of time? Or do you want to try and figure it out on your own? Do you want to try and hash through the brain science and the books and try and like this piece here and that piece there? And it's totally up to you. But just remember that the biggest cost here is all of that time that you could be spending doing the things that would make your life so much more exciting and enjoyable to experience, that would improve your relationship in huge ways, and that would give you the opportunity to stand in power and to feel like you have nothing to hide finally, and be able to be free to walk into any room and know that there is nothing that anyone has on you.